So, I'm going to go through this really quick. Bindi already told you guys about me. I'm a child and adolescent psychiatrist. I have a private practice called SV Psychiatry in Los Altos. And then I have adjunct clinical faculty title at Stanford. I do teaching work there. And I am a co-founder of a nonprofit called Tarika Foundation, whose mission is to create mental health awareness in children and teens. And we do this by doing educational talks like this and seminars and webinars nowadays. I will talk more about it as we get towards the end about some of our newer projects. But without further ado, let's get into the topic. So, I'm going to go through some really simple basic stuff that I'm sure you guys are aware of. But I thought it would be still good to include and have discussion about it if you have questions. So I'm going to start with some really simple practical tips to support a good learning environment. I bet we are almost 3 to 4 weeks into school now. So you might have already done this, but just to review, I guess it would be nice to understand. If you haven't done this, it will be really important to look into this. So we do understand that setting up a workspace for your child is going to be important. And there are a few things to think about when it comes to that. We, of course, want to pick a location that's going to be conducive, where the child can be focused and it's a quiet space for them. Or, if you are, wanting to keep an eye on them, it has to be accessible to a place in a distance where you can keep an eye on them. Or so I think, depending on your situation, it's important to pick the right location. Depending on the learning style of your child, and I know I'm addressing a varied crowd here today with different age groups. So elementary school spans from kindergarten to 5th grade. So I understand your kids might be of different ages, but in general, we know that younger kids have even a lower attention span compared to slightly older kids. And everyone still, has their own learning style. So if you think that your kid really does better with multiple breaks, or they have a particular learning style where they do better with, understanding with the story format. I think that's an important thing to also keep in mind when you are setting up the workspace, so they have place to move around. And I'll, of course, talk about, I'm sure there's expectation for them to sit as far as possible quietly during the lesson, but, in between lessons, or if the teacher has been considerate about younger kids to get and have some movement. So, and if they are being still attentive while moving around and still able to grasp, or if you are spending time in between classes with them to go over something. So keeping that also in mind would be a good idea when you're picking the workspace or you're setting it up. And then, again, like some logistic stuff, like getting the right kind of chair. We want to try to get something that's more ergonomically savvy, if possible. Again, depends on the age of your child. Most of them are working through their iPads or Chromebooks. So it's suggested that you actually set up a monitor if you can, so they can have it at the right eye level, and a keyboard that's more appropriate to their hands and their size. Headphones, this tends to be a controversial kind of topic. But, given that we all are kind of stuck at home, and mostly parents are also working from home, or older siblings and other siblings are working from home, it might be a good idea to have noise canceling headphones, or at least some headphones. Doesn't need to be generally noise canceling. And, I know there are two different systems of learning right now. There is synchronous and asynchronous learning times and schedules. So you could have them put them on during synchronous learning, and during asynchronous learning, of course, they don't need to be using them. And again, this is not necessary. It's your kind of comfort level, your child's preference, but it can be one way to keep them less distracted. And then, of course, keeping in mind that we are all struggling now with Zoom fatigue, with being on the screens all the time, I think it's a good idea to take care of our eyes and use some blue light glasses or a screen on your laptop or Chromebook or your monitor. So, that can help, take care of your eye strain and headaches and things like that won't happen. There's definitely another important thing to remember is to limit distractions. And so again, picking a location which is, free, not necessarily free, but has fewer distractions. And, I think one thing you can certainly do is, encourage them to keep away their devices. I guess younger kids probably don't have that many, I hope. But if they have, then keeping those devices away. And if also possible, turn off any notifications. Those can be pretty distracting if you have all the notifications on, whether your email or other things, unless you feel like that's really important, and you can turn at least the voice off. But even the flash of like this message from somebody, or like I have a teenager who's also has iMessages on her desktop or her laptop, and she'll have some messages popping, and I'm like, isn't that terribly distracting? So I mean, if your child is trying to also communicate with their peers with texting or stuff, maybe a good idea, at least during core classwork and synchronous learning time, to turn off those notifications. So another, I think, basic thing that you might have already done is to make sure you're getting your child organized. And so certainly having some spots where they can store material next to their desk. I mean, of course, we can't do any of this online learning without internet. So making sure you're having a good, reliable internet. I know for our family, since my husband and I and my daughter are all on Zoom calls all day, we had to talk to our internet company and boost the whatever strength, or add another line or something. So sometimes we have to do that. I'm sure that's something you guys have already thought of already. There is also it's important to make sure your child's device is working and they know how to use it. I think you might learn more from them. They probably know how to use it and how it works, but it's important to make sure each night that it's working fine and it's ready for tomorrow. And then, taking time to really visit some of those websites that they have to navigate, in the classroom, to make sure they're able to go back and forth between those websites or programs that their school is using, and making sure they are comfortable doing that. Again, we are talking about digital age kids. They probably know all of this stuff, but it's a little bit different when they used to do that in the classroom setting versus now with everything being online. It might be good to get them organized with those tabs and things like that as well. And then sometimes some of these programs require passwords, and or you have to kind of create different accounts. And so I've had like technical issues that I've heard from other parents that, their child could not continue the class because they got logged out, or their device, ran out of battery or something, and they had to log in, and then it was asking for a password. So it might be a good idea to, write those things up and keep it in a place where it's accessible, so they don't have to bother you if you are in the middle of work to get back on. So again, these are some, I think very simple tips, but at the same time quite important. So when you've done already, I'm sure, we are in few weeks into school, you've probably done this already with setting up a workstation, with making sure they are organized. And maybe you've done part of what I'm going to talk about creating a schedule. So we are in unprecedented times where there's a lot of uncertainty and unpredictability about what's happening day to day. I mean, not just the pandemic, but we've had fires and the smoke and the air quality and the weather changes. I mean, there's been a lot of changes. And so, what we understand is that changes do bring up anxiety for all of us, which is a very normal phenomenon, because we are, usually, used to a certain peace and calm or a routine that always gives us a sense of control and predictability. But given certain times, or current times rather, it is kind of anxiety inducing at times for even us as adults. And so one thing I think we can do that we have control over as parents is to have consistency in the schedule and routine. I think that's huge for kids to have that predictability for day-to-day life. And now that we are back in school schedule, I think it's a little more easier to do that rather than like when it was summer break, when it was a little more free flowing. So of course they have a school schedule that you have to make sure they are aware of, and younger kids really do much better with visual schedules. So really making an effort to either print it out or if you have a whiteboard, to write it up. If you visited your son or daughter's elementary school classes for on back to school nights or open houses, whatever, whenever the school allows you to come into the classroom, you probably have noticed that the teacher does this a lot. Like, she's put up a lot of visual reminders about the schedule. There is things posted all over, so kids kind of see that all the time and understand this is what to expect. And so really making an effort to try to simulate some of that. You can't really recreate a classroom, but even having a schedule that's more visually ready and in front of them can be pretty good, since at that age they tend to have less sense of time. Even having timer on their device or phone, or a timer, just simple timer, if you don't want other distractions, can be also a good idea. That can go off at certain intervals as their school day is rolling, so they know what's coming next. And then of course there's a school schedule to their day, and then there is a schedule for after school hours. And so I encourage parents to also like create one separate schedule for what's going to happen after school. Some of your kids might be still doing some after school activities from home through Zoom again. If they are, then they should know which day what activity is happening. So it's in general a good idea. So even you remember and they remember what's coming. And even, not just putting activities is the main idea about creating a schedule. I think it's more than that. Even like having, a little bit of a format for the day, like, okay, this to this time is dinner time, this to this time is family time, this to this time is your reading time before going to bed. I think having that present visually for the child can be really a good reminder for everyone to stay on track and be consistent. And like I said, I think given current times, this will give them a lot of predictability and certainty about like the day being similar, and there's a plan for the day, and there's predictability. So it can be really good to manage their anxiety or stress right now. And so, of course, creating schedules is one easy thing to do, but to keeping it consistent is what is our challenge. And so I know we all are juggling many balls. You're trying to work from home, and I'm only hearing that working from home has become even more tedious and more demanding. And when you're home and you're with your kids, you're also trying to manage getting the meals on time, and it's a lot. I'm trying to sympathize only with you because I'm trying to juggle with that, and I know it's been harder. And so when we get more demands put on us, there is a very good chance that we slip from following a consistent routine because something takes over, or some other priority kind of makes you get distracted and you forget. So I think the idea is generally to put investment in your time and energy ahead of time, So, creating these schedules ahead of time, creating these plans, having it, reviewing with your child. And if you're unable to fulfill something, being honest and saying, sorry, I had a rough day today, I couldn't be part of this thing with you today. But giving them the sense of control a little bit, that, oh, this is what's typically supposed to happen, and we are trying to do our best to keep going, is really important. And so, that's, I think, something that has helped me to, really stay consistent, at least through the work week. And then you can maybe more laxed, of course, on the weekends. And then sometimes, I get this question from parents that, how can I keep my child, following the schedule? And it is hard. I agree. But, sometimes we have to incentivize them by, putting some point system in place, or a sticker system, or coin and jar system, whatever appropriate reward you can easily do. You could probably give them some motivation like that to follow the schedule. And usually we see that you have to do that only for a few weeks, generally like 2 to 3 weeks. And then once they get into the routine, they really are on their own following that, and you don't need to continue to reward them. But that could be something to think about, just until they get a hang of it. And then it's really a good idea, even though you've created schedules and there is some, information already that's out there in front of them. It might be still a good idea, when you're spending some time with them at the end of the day, just review, what they did in the day today, and what goals were met, and then look at the next day's schedule and ask questions about that, or tell them about what to expect, or what are some things they have to turn in tomorrow, and kind of go over their work schedule. So I know these things only take more time from you, but I cannot emphasize that those 5 or 10 minutes you can invest the night before will be so much of a saver of your time the next day, when you are trying to juggle with your work and other responsibilities. So doing this is really, really a good idea. I certainly want to be able to answer your questions. So we'll save your questions for the end. I'm going to try to finish this maybe even before 45 minutes if I can. I know there will be lots of questions. So I would be happy to answer. Maybe you can put the questions in the chat box if they're coming to you and you might forget later on. That's fine, but we will address them. So, what are some of the other tips? So I think, it becomes extremely critical to collaborate with the teachers. I mean, not just in a regular school, but even more so during these times. And so what are some of the tips that, we are understanding are helpful? So the first and foremost is we all have to be human first, and be really empathetic, and acknowledge that the teachers are also not equipped to do this. They are also in this for the first time, and they are trying their best. So giving them that benefit of the doubt that they are working their best to try to do their teaching online for your child. And really, I mean, it's something I think most of us try to do, but it's really important to put yourself in the other person's shoes and think for a moment how it is from their side. How is this situation? What are they facing? And so I think that just, is a good start to any relationship with anybody in general. But, here, especially with teachers who are trying to now manage so many kids online, it's a daunting task. So we have to kind of keep that in mind. The second thing is, of course, there might be lots of questions you may have, and you're really worried about your child, and you want them to be available to your, questions anytime. But of course, we have to still remember that they have some boundaries and their own life. So trying to really be mindful of respecting their boundaries. And I'm saying this not to just discourage you from oh, you don't need to get in touch with the teacher. I think these are some really simple things to do that are going to enhance your relationship with them if you are trying to do some of this. So they will be more available to you. They will stretch themselves more if you are doing some of these things. That's why we say that just it's human nature. We don't like people who are pushing us and challenging us. We like people who understand us and who are able to work with us. So, and then of course, making sure what's their preferred way of communication. Is it email? Is it phone calls? And at what time phone calls are appropriate? What are some of their requests in terms of how and when they should be approached? So, having knowledge about that so you are prepared. And then, I think, yeah, so, most teachers generally start with an email is what I understand. And so, you could even start with like, of course, in spring, none of us were prepared for this change in distance learning method. We were all blindsided by this pandemic, hitting, and everybody was in like a complete shock state as to how to move forward with learning. And so I know most schools didn't do a great job with distance learning because nobody was equipped with how to move it forward, but they tried to kind of just get through the end of the year. But even if within that, like even if there was 1 or 2 classes, or it was a pretty loosey-goosey kind of schedule your child had, even if you had a glimpse of what was that like for my child, what were some of the challenges you noticed early on in the spring semester, and talking about those ahead of time with the teacher, that this is something I saw, is this something we could find a solution for, might be a good idea. So and then of course giving them up-to-date information about not just what's not working for your child, but also what's working. So giving them some positive feedback about truly what's working, and then of course not what's not working, so they can hear you and find a solution for that. And often there are some family circumstances often that are playing into your child's behaviors during school, or there is some stress that collectively the family is going through, not just because of being stuck at home, but it could be financial stress because of getting, laid off from work, or it could be other emotional stressors with family and extended family. So I think, if there are reasons why your child is not engaging, and it's tied into certain circumstantial stuff in the family, and it's important to let the teacher know about that too, so they can keep in mind about what's the reason for this child's behavior, and they could find a way to work with them differently, or work with you to create a different kind of plan. I think a lot of the times as parents, we try to keep these personally, and of course it's a personal matter. I'm not trying to say that you have to go and disclose it. But if you have an inkling that since this particular stress, I'm seeing a distinct change in child's behavior otherwise as well, and particularly during school, I think your teachers can be your ally to work with the child's behavior, and you can find a way to still get some, learning going. So the other point that I came across was, this advice to use a lot of positive attention. I'm sure you guys know what that means, but I'm going to kind of clarify it anyways for people who might be not sure what that really means. So we all know what is attention, right? Of course, attention is where your awareness and your focus goes, right? So but using positive attention in parenting means really like it's a little different than just giving attention. So when we use the word positive attention in child psychiatry, or in the field of child development, we are talking about focusing on child's positive behavior. So, I'm sure you are familiar with terms like negative attention. So usually what we understand is that when your child is not behaving right is usually when our attention kind of goes to them, because certainly that's much more of a behavior that calls out your attention. They might be disruptive, they might be, fighting with their sibling or whatnot. So generally what happens is our general tendency is, because those negative behaviors draw your attention more, you're always in a tendency to pay negative attention, as we call it. So negative behaviors call out for your attention, and that's negative attention. And usually, if your child is sitting quietly and doing their work, or if they're sharing with their sibling, we often like take those things for granted, and we are like, oh yeah, that's what they're supposed to do, big deal. But it is important to remember that those are the things also to focus on and appreciate them for, or catch them being good for, and not just like catch them when they are trying to do something not so right. So how does that come in this context of distance learning? Let's find out. So, I know a lot of you are working parents, and so you may not have the whole luxury to sit with your child for the whole day. And some of you might have to adjust your work hours to do that. Maybe I know I worked with a few families where mom has, changed her working schedule to be with the child. So she took some time off in the first 2 weeks of school to be with the child, to get them established into the routine. But not everyone is able to do that. And so if you are one who's like me, who's able to like get up intermittently and pay attention to what's going on with your child, with the school schedule, try to do that as much as you can. And the idea during that time is not to like I think we very quickly come to correction, and we are always ready to like correct than praise. Like there's this whole like praise to correction ratio that we always mess up. We do the other way around. We correct more than we praise. And so really understanding that this is a new way of learning for your child, and giving attention to things that they are doing right. And if you're noting out some points that need correction, I'm not saying you shouldn't, because I mean that's the goal of being a parent. You want to work on making things better for them. But if they are in the middle of a class, or they've had a 5-10 minute break and they're trying to like do some preferred activity for fun, maybe unless it's super urgent, maybe this could wait till you both have more time to talk about some of your observations, what some of the things you think could improve, and talk about it then. And then whenever they are asking you to come in, or you are checking in, make sure, I know I find myself guilty about this, because I'm like preoccupied with my work or my client's issue or my prescription I have to send or whatever. And so I am like not fully there when my child is asking a question, or she's trying to have a conversation, let's say during lunchtime. And so it's important, easier said than done, to really have focused attention within that small window of time, or short window of time you have with them, and really be there fully to answer their questions, and then you can go about doing what you need to do. And then help them pick up some preferred break activities in between classes. We generally say that in that it's good idea not to give them screen time to watch a video or a show or play a game during the break activities, just because we know that it's awfully hard to sometimes go off of it for some kids, and they are very I guess challenging to go off of the X number of time you are giving on the device, and then transition back to the classroom or class schedule. The other main reason is, of course, we are trying to give them a break, and it shouldn't be a screen from a screen break, right? I mean, even though they are doing a completely different activity, which is more fun for them, we say it's those preferred breaks should be more of activity where they are getting some movement. So whether it is going out in your backyard and jumping on a trampoline if you have one, or going for a little like run in your backyard, or eating or having a snack or a drink or whatever, or it could be if you have a jump rope, they're jumping, or they're just like sitting and doodling, or they're sitting and doing nothing, or listening to music. I mean, those would be the menu items I would offer. And if you are using a incentive plan or a reward plan or a behavioral plan, as we call it, to get them into a good schedule, they can, for each of those points they accomplish, that could be used towards screen time at the end of the school day or later in the day, but whatever is comfortable, again, within your parameters. I know we are getting more and more concerned about how much time are they going to be on screens and how's that going to impact them. More and more recent research before the pre-COVID time, of course, in terms of screen use, was telling us there are higher rates of anxiety, depression, and ADHD that we are seeing in kids because they are on screens all the time. So we don't know. I mean, right now the education takes precedence over that, so we have to use the screens for learning. But can we give them a break from fun screen break? I mean, it's a very controversial thing, but I personally think that it shouldn't be zero, but it should be maybe controlled, and that could be something they can, get points towards if that's what's motivating them to, use them at a later time. So I already talked about this. And so, yeah, encourage them to move around, get exercise, and I also like, and I'm trying to do some of this, uh, to engage in some, if you have a common break time with them, or you've arranged and rearranged your schedule where you try to time some of your breaks with your child's break. So in addition to doing the fun stuff, sometimes it might be nice to just sit and do some relaxation exercises together, whether it is breathing or some mindfulness exercises. I will come to some of those in the later slides, but I have handouts for you guys that Bindi and Samyukta, or one of them, would be able to get to you later on, which walks you through really simple mindfulness exercises for kids. And then, setting some really realistic expectations. So, a lot of the times it is difficult to do that, but as of current times, it might be good idea to even reset some of the expectations, that maybe the shift in the focus should be how much my child is learning versus how many A's or B's they are getting, or what kind of grades they are getting, or what kind of, I mean, I know in elementary school it's not so much of a focus, but I think the shift from, like, oh, they need to get, the best of the grade, to how much they are learning, is what I think we should switch to, because these are unusual circumstances. So whatever we can do in terms of getting them engaged and learn as much they can is a victory right now. So yeah, setting realistic goals as to what's going on for your child, where they stand. Some kids are thriving with online learning. Some kids are just not doing well. It's not for them. So you need to understand that, even though your friend's son might be doing fine, your son is not, or your daughter is not. And that's okay. It's not because they have a problem. It's just like, all of us learn differently, and some of us need that social interaction, and we need that space and the right kind of environment. And online learning doesn't offer that. So that might be a big factor why they may not be so engaged. Really prioritizing your parent-child relationship being more important at this time than sabotaging that in this process of trying to get your child to a perfect, learning trend or grade. Focus on their adaptability, appreciate them for how they're, adapting day by day and making progress. And again, focus on the skills they are learning than measuring the outcome. And, I think you are the best person who knows them, and you trust your instincts. And, if you are like, I want these foundational skills in my child right now to be built, like the writing and reading and spelling or math foundational stuff, even if you're able to focus on that and get that as a core thing established in this time, that's what really matters. They may not like really do well in the test maybe, but as long as you think they are making progress from improving their reading level, their writing, they may not be writing an assignment that their teacher tells them, but if you tell them to write a paragraph about their weekend, or how their life has been with not seeing their friends, or whatever topic you come up with, and they are writing and showing that to you, that's good enough. That's showing you that they are actually writing and making progress there. So Another, of course, along the same lines, think beyond traditional schoolwork. So really focusing on building independence. So if school is not their cup of tea right now, it's okay. You can use this time also to hone some other life skills and other responsibilities, helping them, cook with you. I mean, again, depending on the age of the child, and asking them, appropriate stuff to do, taking care of your pets, doing chores that they can, um, ensuring they're getting physical activity, and then giving them some unstructured time where they can really get creative, and can just be kind of in the moment, and not like having a schedule all day, because that's not also the intention. Like, we want also them to have an unwinding free time where they just do things and come up with some creative ideas. And then, of course, it's extremely hard for us to maintain any kind of social bonds and relationships in this kind of very difficult time. So, we know, someone said, healthy peer relationships, social skills, and social support systems are such critical parts of development. So we don't want our child to be deprived of that. So getting creative within the constraints we have. If there's a group project, really making an effort to have them connect with their friend online or over the phone, or share or use FaceTime or Zoom calls. Sometimes I know we kind of keep coming back to screens, but whatever we can use technology with leverage, or if you've created a small pod with some family, doing things with social distancing and appropriately kind of navigating that is also an important thing. We want to not compromise the mental health in the search, or in this fight for academic and just academic achievement. So of course, I'm sure you have kids who are pushing back on complying with all of these things. I'm sure you're struggling with keeping them engaged. So what can you do about this? And again, I can't emphasize, I'm coming back to the core and the basics of practicing empathy, or being empathic or empathetic, and practicing compassion. I mean, I want you to really take a moment to think about how they are feeling and how difficult this is for them. And if they are throwing tantrums or crying or being mad or saying things, allow them to express their feelings. Again, I'm not saying you should give them attention and reinforce that behavior, but at the same time, if they are trying to share something with you about what's difficult about class, or what's something they are not having easy time working with, or if they are showing certain behaviors, try to kind of sit down and understand what feeling is driving this behavior. Hear them out. I think we are busy, and we often don't do a good job. If you sit with them in a non-judgmental setting, no agenda, just if you're going for a walk even, or whatever, let them talk about what they are feeling, if they have fears about this, if they have concerns about this time, if they have problems with the teacher, or a peer, whatever that is. Just definitely hear them, and of course focus on the positive, whatever is going well, than not just pointing out always what's not going well. So I can't emphasize, again, I'm in this field, but I think we want to make sure we are all taking care of our child's mental health and our own mental health, because that's what is such a important thing. We try really hard to take good care of our physical health. There's certainly a lot of awareness about that, but the hardware in our computer, in our body, is the one that does everything for us. If we don't take care of our mental health, I think we can't go too far. So make sure you're paying attention to any behavioral changes. Practice what we call as active listening, which is basically not just like listening. Active listening really means that you're actually fully being there, and you are able to, I mean, I am not saying you should paraphrase and tell them back what you understood, but that's what truly active listening means. You're really understanding what they are saying and trying to put yourself in their shoes, and listening and fully being there, and then interpreting if you got this right. let them express their worries about this time. It's totally okay. We shouldn't be like shove it and say, oh, it's going to be fine. Don't talk about it. We often try to protect them from certain bad stuff. I mean, there's too much bad stuff happening right now. I'm not saying you should expose them. Age appropriately is important, but it's also important to give them the facts and reassure them that even though this is happening, this will get better. We are all in this. There's hope. We'll get through this. Focus on your own mental health. I think, we can help others only when we are healthy ourselves. So these are, again, unprecedented times that have induced a lot of anxiety. So we know that your kid can really feed off of your anxiety. So it's really well known that, if you are anxious, even though you're trying to protect them from whatever is going on from, in your life, from you, they will still sense it, no matter how good you are in terms of hiding it. So make sure you are, getting help and support to manage it, or you're just practicing good self-care to manage your day-to-day demands and emotions and stress. Very important to remind yourself to be kind and gentle to yourself. I think we get very critical of ourselves. We're very easy to get down to blame and blame ourselves and being harsh on ourselves. Like, I'm not being a good mother right now. I'm not being a good employee right now. I think we have to accept that you're not going to be able to be doing a perfect job everywhere, and you have to accept some things will slide, and that's okay. And nobody's doing this perfectly either. Always appreciate yourself, give yourself a pat on the back when you're still trying to make things going and work, despite of so much going on. Get support from your extended family, caregivers, whoever you can. Don't hesitate to do that. And of course, remember, you're not alone in this. So I'm a big believer and practitioner of mindfulness. So I can't emphasize the importance of that. I keep bringing it back in every other slide. And so I want parents, this is one of the handouts also you can get. I came across this really wonderful September self-care bingo kind of game picture, which is really nice. It's a nice overview. I'm not going to spend time on this. I know we have to get going and get to the questions. So you will get a handout, but this is a nice reminder for you to do things for yourself and check off your bingo card. And then there are handouts also on what are some of kid-friendly ways to practice mindfulness with your child. I cannot tell you how much research is there to support the benefits of mindfulness. I can give a whole separate talk on that. But, this is what our time is asking for, to be in the moment. We can worry about tomorrow and day after and whatever, but that's not what's gonna help us get through this. So really being in the moment, trying to look at the things that are going well, for practicing gratitude, compassion. I mean, those are the things that it boils down to. And then, I'm happy to also email a PDF slides kind of handout later, so you guys can look at some of the resources. One of our newest kind of ventures with my nonprofit is this podcast that we have started a couple months ago. It's called Mindful, Beautiful, and Thriving. And it has 2 segments for parents and for teens. We just finished our mindful parenting segment, which was about 16 to 18 episodes, I believe. And it was very well received, I think, especially given current times. So I would encourage you guys. We are available. It's for free on Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you want. It's called Mindful, Beautiful, and Thriving. And do listen to those episodes. You will really like them. If you have any questions, that's my email, and that's more about our foundation. And I am ready to take your questions now.
Leena, can you see the question, or do you want me to help you?
Yeah, so I just got to the chat box. Let's see. Okay, so I have one question here from Sarah. For kids that don't seem to take virtual classroom as serious as bricks and mortar classroom, what are some ways to talk to your child about the importance of this type of classroom? So that's a really good question, Sarah. So I think, depending again on depending on the age of your child, is it possible for you to type how old is your child, so I can be more appropriate with the type of answer I choose? Fourth grade? Okay. So they are about 9, or, somewhere between 9 to 10-year-old. So, your child is bit older. I mean, I was just wondering if if it was a first grader or kindergartner, for instance. So fourth grader is good. So, it is very much understandable that they are not finding this, to be as serious or as nearly as important as the regular classroom. And so I think you have to, I guess, validate that and I don't know if you've taken a moment to talk to them about what about it is making them not feel serious. But of course, listen to them. Maybe they'll say, yeah, it's not the same and I don't feel motivated, or this is just like not working for me. So there might be answers like that. But in terms of helping them understand that this is still important to engage and try to do your best, I would say you can, talk to them, giving some examples. And one of the examples that I'm thinking about is, you know, I don't know if they go to any kind of activity, like, for instance, like my daughter used to, go for her actual in-house classes for martial arts. And certainly with the pandemic, they switched over to offer those classes via Zoom. And excuse me. And so she's been still like wanting to do those because she likes that activity. And so helping the child understand, I don't know if your child is involved in any kind of virtual activity or not, but I think even taking it to that, like if it was, if they are willing to do it virtually for another fun activity, and they are doing it because they like it and they are learning something new. Similarly, you don't expect that you will be as engaged, or it may not be the same, you understand it, but it is important to try your best to be in the classroom and learn one or two things and then tell you what they learned, even though it is like they got one or two things from the teacher. That's fine. I think even building it from that, like if you can translate it to, unfortunately this is what we have to do during these times, and I don't expect you to, like, I don't want to, like, I mean, I don't want to use the fear method here, where a lot of parents may say, oh, you would get 0 on your test, or you would fail in your test. I don't think that's thought to be a nice way to teach them the importance of something. But emphasizing again that some learning is going to still happen, even though it's not the same, and what matters is the learning, and it is not so much important about what the test shows to you. So even sometimes easing that, and I know you might say, but what if they go at the other end and they just kind of stop working at all? I think if that's what's happening for your child, unfortunately, you've tried a few different things, then you would just need to work with them at this time, using motivation to incentivize them to achieve some of the goals that you both can come up with. Some more reasonable goals can be a way to kind of shape this, than using punishment or taking away stuff or instilling a fear factor. I hope that answers your question, Sarah. Any other questions? Did I miss on any questions?
Leena, there was one question in the Q&A.
Yeah.
Can you access it?
Oh yeah,
Or you
there
have,
is a Q&A. That's true.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So this is from Sapna.
definitely. Yeah.
How does one give well-intentioned constructive feedback to one's child, especially when it's being constructed as nitpicking by the child, or when kid perceives distant learning as being different than regular school day? So I think I'm seeing like maybe there's a couple kind of questions in that one question. So let me take the first part. Um, so when we talk about constructive feedback, we certainly bring in that thing I was trying to elude during my talk about this praise to correction ratio. I don't want you to falsely praise your child if they are not doing something well, so that's not the intention here. But even um, giving them some rather than like correcting all the time, giving them some positive feedback around like, oh, I liked how you tried to engage in that class, and I got this feedback from your teacher that you tried something new today, or I appreciate you trying so hard, when it is kind of hard to do this in an online school setting. So I think the constructive feedback certainly needs to happen, but it also needs to happen at the right time. So if your child is not doing something well, or they are refusing to do their homework, for instance, and you saw something from earlier today in the school day that you were feeling like, oh, they were not paying attention, that's why they're not able to do the homework right now. I think it's very natural, like we jump to that, like I saw that you were goofing off during that class, and no wonder now you're needing my help to do this homework. I think that's very discouraging, as much as it comes very intuitively to you and you're feeling like, I'm at my tail end of the day and I don't want to do anything more. But having really like taking a step back and looking at, okay, yeah, my child is struggling to accept distance learning as a way of learning, and they consider this as a fun thing, but there is no seriousness about this being a regular school. So yes, you have to accept that, but at the same time, you can talk about it, saying, I'm happy to help you, but this could have been more helpful if you had paid attention during that time when your teacher was asking this. How about we try to send a message to the teacher and join the office hours tomorrow to clarify this concept from her. So kind of acknowledging, accepting, but not necessarily like you know punishing, like making them feel really terrible about that. Okay, you did that. Okay, let's move forward, let's find a way to problem solve this, and let's see what else can we do to get move past this. And then um I know it was so much easy for us to send away our kids to school and be assured that they are learning, and now that they are in our face and we see them goofing out, or we are not fully satisfied with how well they are engaging, you really are noticing a lot of flaws, and there's a very big tendency to nitpick. And I don't know if your child is perceiving that, or maybe some of it is actually happening, is a thing to kind of look into and reflect back on. And so, okay, Sapna, I find my start with gentleness, then the more I repeat, the less patient I get. So I think, this is another thing. I think I'm glad you brought that up. Um, you know, I think you have to be very smart about this. Kids are really very smart that there is a magic number for how many times you're going to repeat. And then after that you're going to give up, or you're going to either forget about it, or you're going to get mad or upset, or more than likely you're going to just like let go of it. So if you're repeating over and again, no matter whether you start with gentle reminders or not, I think it's important to understand that strategy is not going to work, and you need to switch your strategies. So if you're finding yourself repeating and nothing is being achieved, I would try something else, like, okay, um, you know following directions the first time will give you 5 points for XYZ reward that you're trying to accrue, whether you're trying to, get 100 points to buy your favorite Lego set, so finding that right carrot for your child, and maybe having a plan that's doing it for you rather than you spending your energy. And if they don't care, then you find the right different carrot. But I think this is very well known fact that kids will not, they know that you will do it for X number of times and then you will give up. And so there's no need to lose your patience and lose your energy at the end of the day. Maybe you need to switch your strategy. Okay, and I see one of the suggestions that also came, from Poonam was role play may work in the situation also. Yeah, I think that's a good one. You can sometimes role play, and you can become the teacher and the child and pretend to be student, and kind of get to understand what's that like, and try to have a conversation and give them some kind of feedback that way. All right. Any other questions from anyone?
I think Sarah's question was answered. Sorry, that was done.
Okay.
No.